In this lesson, we're going to look at the relationship between functions and graphs. And so number one, you're given that the function f of x is equal to 4x minus 3. Now notice that this function is a linear function. And so you're given this table, and you want to sketch the graph of this linear function. So remember, this is a linear function. So we're looking at a linear function. And so basically, you're given the value of x for at least this part here, and you want to find the function value. Now remember, f of x means the same thing as that y coordinate. All right, so f of x means the same thing as y. So we're looking for this y coordinate. So when x is 1, what's the y coordinate? When x is 0, what's the y coordinate? When x is negative 1, what's the y coordinate? When x is 2, what's the y coordinate? Now over here, you're given the function value, and you want to find the x value that gives you the function value of 9, or the y value of 9. You're given the function value of negative 11, and you want to find the x value that gives you the negative 11. Okay? All right, so let's look at this part here. So when x is 1, you want to find the function value. So here's what's happening. So I'm going to go ahead and put that here. So for this one here, when x is 1, you want to find f of 1. All right, so remember f of x, so this x here is 1. So you're going to go back to your function notation, your function expression, and so f of x, remember, is 4x minus 3. So where we see the variable x, you're going to substitute 1. So I get 4 times 1 minus 3. So that's 4 minus 3, which is 1. So when x is 1, my y value is 1. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in a different color. Hopefully it'll show up as a different color. So that's the value 1. Then you can do the same thing with 0. So when x is 0, you want to find, so let me go ahead and put that here. So when x equals 0, you want to find f of 0. So remember, where we see the variable x, and substitute 0. So I get 4 times 0 minus 3, and 4 times 0 is 0, and 0 minus 3 is a negative 3. So f of x, when x is 0, my y value, f of x, or f of 0, is negative 3. And then do the same thing for x is negative 1. So you're going to say when x is negative 1, you're going to find f of negative 1. And so where you see the variable x, you're going to substitute negative 1. So I get 4 times negative 1 minus 3. 4 times negative 1 is a negative 4. And negative 4 minus 3 is a negative 7. So when x is negative 1, my y value is negative 7. I'm putting negative 7 here. And then you continue the process. So let me go and do that here. So when x is 2, the next one is when x is 2, right here. When x is 2, you want to find that function value. So when x is 2, I want to find f of 2. And so I go to my function, and wherever we see the variable x, I substitute 2. So I get 4 times 2 minus 3. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 minus 3 is 5. So when x is 2, my function value is 5. All right, now over here, you're given the function value this time. So remember, that's y, right? So I want you to see something. So remember, f of x is 4x minus 3. That's my function for this problem, my linear function. All right, so notice you're told that f of x is 9, meaning that this right here is 9. So that's 9. And so you want to find the x value that would give this function value of 9. So basically all you're doing is just solving this linear equation for x. See, 4x minus 3 has to equal 9, right? Because that's what you're told f of x is. So you're going to add 3 to both sides. So I get 9 plus 3 is 12. 12 equals 4x. And dividing both sides by 4, I have x. So x is 3. It's not a very difficult process. So when x is 3, my y value is 9. And it makes sense because look, so if x is 3, let's see if that's true. What's 4 times 3? Remember, x is 3. What's 4 times 3? 4 times 3 is 12. 12 minus 3 is 9. And then you do the same thing for negative 11. So remember f of x is 4x minus 3. So this time f of x is negative 11. And so you want to find the value of x, that will give this function value negative 11. So we're going to add 3 to both sides. And when I add 3 to both sides, a negative 11 plus 3 is a negative 8, and that's going to equal 4x. This is 0. Dividing both sides by 4 and simplified, I get x to be negative 2. So when x is negative 2, that's when I get the y value negative 11. And you can always check. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8, and negative 8 and negative 3 is a negative 11. And so you fill in the table. Now what they want you to do is just sketch your graph using these points. So remember, this is x, this is y. F of x means the same thing as y. So just go in and just plot those points, and then shade your, remember this is linear, so all these better lie on the same line. If for some reason they're not in the same line, I made an error somewhere. So hopefully I did not make an error in my computation here, my arithmetic. All right, so 1, 1 is in the first quadrant right here. So there's the point 1, 1. 0, negative 3 is on the negative y-axis right here. Negative 1, 7, negative 1, negative 7 rather, is right here. Right here. 2, 5 is in the first quadrant right here. 3, 9 is also in the first quadrant, so that's right here, right? And then finally, negative 2, negative 11 is in the third quadrant, so that is right here. All right, and then just do the best. Notice I didn't actually put this on the where it should be, so it's not gonna. Hopefully, it'll look fine. So just hopefully all those points better lie in the same line. Okay, looks like it does. Just got to move this a little. Okay. And then just draw your line like this. And just extend and make sure you draw an arrow. And there's a graph. Okay? So that's number 1. All right, let's look at number 2. All right, so number 2, you're told this. You want to translate the following into the following points into coordinates, and you want to plot them. So remember f of negative 3 equals 5, what that means. So if I go back to the previous problem, you see right here when I said when x was 0, I said f of 0 is negative 3, right? So what that meant was that when x is 0, this f of 0, which is negative 3, that negative 3 is the y coordinate, right? And so when I did x equal negative 1 right here, and I found f of negative 1, that negative 7 is the y coordinate. So f of negative 1 equal negative 7 means that when x is negative 1, my y value is negative 7. When x is 2, f of 2 was 5. So that means that when x is 2, my y value is 5, right? 2, 5. Over here, well, these are not a good example because, well, we could actually use this. So let me go ahead and use that on another sheet of paper so I don't confuse you with this part. So for this one here, see, x was 3, right? So f of 3 is equal to, and we right here, so see this right here, f of 3 is equal to 9, right? So that means that when x is 3, y equal 9. That's what that means. All right, so that means when we go to this one now, f of negative 3 equal 5. So we go into that here. F of negative 3 equal 5. Remember, f of negative 3. So this negative 3 is in the x part. So f of x. So x is negative 3. Then y equal what? When x is negative 3, then y equals 5. And so therefore x is negative 3, y is 5. And so you'd say your point is negative 3 comma 5. And the same thing here. So this is your x. Remember right here, I'm going to go ahead and write it out. F of 2 equal negative 3. So this is your x, right? and this is your y coordinate. So y equals -3. So f of x that means y, right? So y has to equal -3. So when x is 2, y is -3. So then you'll say 2 comma -3. So the same thing here. X is -5, y is 0. Over here, x is 5, y is 6. And then all they want you to do is plot the points. Now remember, they're just saying plot the points. We're not saying this is a line, so don't draw a line between them. In fact, those points will not lie in the same line. And don't even connect them, just plot the points. I want to see 1, 2, 3, 4 points being plotted. So -3, 5. -3, 5 is in the second quadrant, so that's here. Just put a dot there. And then 2, -3. 2, -3 is in the fourth quadrant, right here, right? So there's 2, -3. And then this was -3, 5. The next one is -5, 0. So -5, 0. Oops, sorry. -5, 0 is right here. X is -5, y is 0. So there's -5, 0. And then 5, 6. 5, 6 is in the first quadrant. And that is right here, right? So that's 5, 6. All right. So notice when I didn't say these points lie in the same line. They just wanted you to plot those 4 points. All right. So we have -3, 5, which is in the second quadrant, 5, 6, which is in the first, 2, -3, which is in the fourth, and then -5, 0. That's a 0 here, which is not in a quadrant. It actually lies on an axis. So it's on the x-axis, and in this case, the negative part of the x-axis. All right, so that's number 2. That's all they want you to do, number 2. All right, so then in number 3, you're given a function right here, the graph of a function, and from this graph, you want to find these function values. So remember we just talked about, right? So f of -4 means when x is -4, so remember what that means. Let me go ahead and write that out here. Let me go ahead and do another sheet of paper. So it's very important that you understand what f of -4 means. So f of -4 means this. Means when x is -4, what is the y value? That's what we mean, okay? So when x is -4, what is that y value? So all you have to do is find where x is -4. So see where x is so that's the x-axis, so -4. And then what I would do is I would use a ruler or something, and then so here's x is -4. I would put now here's a graph, right? So I would put a dot on the graph where that corresponds, where that ruler, so here's x equal -4, where that ruler intersects the graph. So right here. So I'm gonna label the coordinates here just to show you what this means. So this point right here that I have plotted right here, that is -4, -3, right? So that's -4, -3. And so now we can answer the question. When x is -4, what's my y value? My y value is -3. So that's your answer. Let me go ahead and use a different color. So -3. Okay? All right, then you do the same thing with the other one. So f of 2 means this. So f of 2 means when x is 2, what is the y value? That's what that means. When x is 2, what is the y value? So on the x-axis, I find where 2 is located. So 2 is located here, right? So I'm going to use my ruler, and I'm going to put a dot where that ruler touches the graph. So the ruler touches the graph here. Then I'm going to label that point just to help me. I'm going to label that point, and when I label that point, that becomes 2, 3, right? And so now we can answer the question. When x is 2, what's my y value? Well, my y value is 3. So f of 2 is equal to 3. So it helps. It helps if you use something like a ruler and then you put a dot in the graph and you label the points. It does help. f of 0, so remember what f of 0 means. So it's important to see what that means. So remember f of 0 means when x equals 0, what is the y value? All right, these all should be questions, right? What is the y value? All right, well, so remember x is 0, so here's the x-axis. So here's where x is 0. So I'm gonna put my ruler there, and then I'm gonna put a dot where that ruler intersects the graph, right here. And I'm gonna label that point. So when I label that point, that's the point 0, 1, right? 0, 1. So when x is 0, what's that y value? Well, that y value is 1. So put the number 1 there, okay? So just like the previous problem, it kind of makes sense what's happening. Just like the previous problem, f of negative 3 equal 5 means that when x is 3, my y value is 5, right? And so same thing here. When x is negative 4, my y value is negative 3. Kind of makes sense because look, when I put a dot on this part of the graph right here, that's negative 4, negative 3. And so it helps make a connection between what we just did and this with this. And so f of negative 7 means when x equals negative 7, what is the y value? All right, so then on the x-axis, let's locate negative 7. So here's negative 7 in the x-axis, right? So I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm going to put a dot where that ruler intersects the graph, so that's here. And I'm going to label the point. So that's the point negative 7, and this is negative 6, right? Negative 7, negative 6, and now I have the answer. When x is negative 7, my y value is negative 6. So it'll be negative 6. Okay? All right, so that wasn't that bad. It's pretty simple to understand. Now look at this one right here. So this right here says find x for which f of x is 3. All right, so remember when we did this, when we did these problems, so I said when x is negative 4, what's my y value? So I went and I located negative 4, 2, 0, negative 7 on the x-axis, right? All right, now let's get this. When x, we want to find the value of x for which f of x equals 3. All right, so let's see what that means. I'm going to put a little line here, and then I'm going to go ahead and write this right here, f of x equal 3. Now remember what f of x stands for. F of x stands for y. All right, so this time y is 3. So here's what this means. This means this. When y equals 3, what is the x value? When y equals 3, what is the x value? So y is 3, right? Y is 3. So when y is 3, what is the x value? That's what you're just looking for. So now you're told y is 3. So now we have to look on the y-axis. So the y-axis, y is 3 here. Y'all agree? And so this time I'm going to put I'm going to put my ruler horizontally here. So y is 3, and we already have that point already denoted. So when y is 3, what is my x value? Well, my x value is 2. So the answer is 2 right here. So you're going to say 2. When y is 3, see right here, y is 3, right? Y is 3. Remember that. F of x equals 3 means that my y value is 3. So when y is 3, what is that x coordinate? Well, my x coordinate, when y is 3, my x coordinate is 2. Now over here, let's look at this one. So this time, let me go ahead and write this out. So this time we have f of x equals negative 5. F of x equal negative 5. So again, remember, this is your y. So I'm asking when y equals negative 5, what is the x coordinate or x value, right? X coordinate, x value. All right, so let's look at this. When y is negative 5, so I'm going to locate negative 5 on the y-axis. That's here. All right, so notice I'm going to put my ruler horizontally on this. And so when y is negative 5 right here, I actually have 2 points where y is negative 5. There's one here and there is one here. Okay? All right, now let's this one right here. This is easy to see what coordinates this is. So see, this is -5, right? -5. So this time we're looking at y, so you got to look on the y-axis. All right, so when y is -5, this point right here has coordinates -6, -5. So I found one of my x coordinates. So one of them is -6. So x equal -6. Okay? But there's another one in there right here. But the problem is that we're going to have to estimate that one because it doesn't quite go through 6. It's like 6 point, let's just estimate, let's say 6.2. So I'm going to write this as 6.2 comma -5. Okay? So 6.2 comma -5. So when y is -5, the other x coordinate is approximately equal to 6.2. I had to approximate that one. So, and positive 6.2. Okay? All right. So that's how you did that one. That's how you do those. So almost all students can understand this very easily. There's this is a little bit more challenging for some students because you're kind of looking at the y value this time. But remember, when you're looking at the y value, always use your ruler and do this horizontally on the y-axis. So locate that number on the y-axis, and then you see where it intersects the graph, put a dot, and then label it, and you got your answer for x. All right, and then finally, number 4. So one of these you got to remember to do this one. Notice there's some open circles, right? So one thing you got to remember is that open circle. When you say an open circle, that point is not part of the graph. Not part of the graph. And I can say it a different way. So remember when we would graph lines, and let me go ahead and look at the one we did in number 1. So when we did number 1, and hopefully you remember this from a previous lesson, that when you're graphing lines, or that when we graph lines or any function, what you're doing is graphing the solutions. So all these are solutions. All right, all these points on that line, and there are an infinite number of points. All these points in that line are solutions to this function. Okay, to this equation. And so when you see an open circle, we can also say that the point is not a solution to the equation. All right, so if we were to look at this in terms of an equation. So one thing you got to remember, though, is that when you see an open circle is not part of the graph. And later on, you're going to learn that that's going to affect the domain and range. All right, so an open circle is not part of the graph. A closed circle is. So closed circle is part of the graph. So open circle is not, closed circle is. Okay? All right, now let's look at this one. So this function is h of x, and so we find h of 3. Now remember what h of 3 means. So h of 3 means this. So h of 3 means when x equals 3, what is the y value? That's what that means, remember? When x equals 3, what is the y value? So when x is 3, remember x is 3 here, right? So I'm going to go along the x-axis right here, and I'll put a dot where the graph intersects the graph right here. So that's the point 3, 2. So when x is 3, what's that y value? Well, that y value is 2. So the answer is 2. All right. So when x is 3, my y value is 2. That's what you see here, right? 3, 2. All right. So this one, the next one, when h is 2, what's the y value? You want to find h of 2. So h of 2 means when x is 2, what is the y value? Right? What is the y value or the y coordinate? So this time h is 2 right here. All right, now be careful. Notice there's an open circle there. All right, see an open circle and you see a closed circle. So you say, well, which one do I use? Remember, open circle is never part of the graph. The closed circle is. So you must use this one. You must use this one. Okay? You have to use this one. So this right here is 2 comma negative 2. Always use the closed circle, not the open. All right. So we're going to deal more with open circles later on. Okay, so 2, negative 2. So when x is 2, my y value is negative 2. So you got to use this one. Don't use this one because that's open. So it's important you remember that. So negative 2. So when x is 2, my y value is negative 2. And that's what that says, right? All right. H of 0. So when x is 0, what's my y value? Well, here's where x is 0. You have that same situation. You have an open circle and a closed circle. Which one must you use? Which of these points must you use? Do you use the open circle or do you use a closed circle? Okay, you have to use the closed circle, right? All right, so now let's label the point. So when I label that point, remember that point is when x is 0, my y value is 2. So I have the answer. When x is 0, my y value is 2. Okay, let's go to h of 1. So h of 1, so when x is 1, what's my y value? Well, here's where x is 1. Let me go ahead and use my ruler to help me. So it intersects the graph here. Let's go ahead and label that point. Do y'all agree that that point is 1, comma 1? 1, comma 1. So when x is 1, what's your y value? My y value is 1. So 1 goes here. All right, h of 4. All right, now listen carefully to what I'm going to say here. All right, h of 4. So when I go to, remember h of 4 means what's the x, what's the y value when x is 4? Well, when x is 4, you get this point here, right? An open circle. But you don't see a closed circle anywhere, do you? There's no closed circle anywhere. See, when you did this one, when you did h of 2, you had a closed circle. When you did h of 0, you had a closed circle. You had an open and a closed, but you at least had a closed, right? You had an open and a closed. Here, h of 2, you had an open and a closed, so you used a closed. Here, you have an open only. You have an open only. Now remember, open is not part of the graph. So therefore you might ask, well, what do I write? What's my y value? All right, so since there is no closed circle corresponding to x equal 4, you have to say this: does not exist. All right, so that's what you say: does not exist. All right. Okay, and then finally h of 2.5. So look, when x is 2.5, that's about here, right? So let me go ahead and estimate where there it is. So when x is 2.5, here's the point that corresponds to this. So this point right here has coordinates 2.5, comma, and then my y value is 1. So when x is 2.5, what's your y value? The y value is 1. Okay? All right, and so that's it. So that is the lesson on this part of our section. Just remember about this though, h of 4. Remember that you have an open circle, you just don't see a closed circle anywhere that corresponds to x equal 4. So you have to say does not exist. All right, so that is it. All right, so good luck on the worksheet that deals with this topic.